Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Ndegwa. Now, Kenya's transport sector accounts for 8.3% of the country's GDP, and the matatu sector as an industry is an integral part in steering the country's economy. I am joined by one James Macharia, who has been in this industry for more than 15 years. He is the operations director of the Federation of Drivers and Conductors in the country. Good morning, Mr. Macharia.
Good morning, Vivian.
Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Well, thank you.
Okay, if we may just start by you telling us a bit of a story of how you made it to become the director, because I understand that you started off as a mere driver.
Well, mine is a long story. I was a civil servant at a certain time. Then I decided to quit when I thought I could make it with one 14-seater matatu that I owned then. Then I thought it was not being managed properly, so I retired so that I could manage my 14-seater. How did I know that there could be a lot of problems? When I started managing the 14-seater, we normally disagreed with the driver because of he was not bringing enough money, always court cases. And then at one time, he threw the keys at me and told me, you cannot, I said, drive the vehicle, sita endesha. And so I decided, yes, I'll be bold enough. I started driving the vehicle. Yeah. That is when I discovered the problems with the matatu industry. Of course, I could not make enough money because I was new. I could not properly mingle with the drivers. I was always like, I'm not part of them. So eventually, I could not make it. Then I decided to do a very personal research on the driver and the conductor. Why do they behave the way they do? Because when I was driving, the circle I was in then always told me I was on the side of the drivers other than on the side of the owners. I also discovered, so there are two different sides here, the owners and the drivers, and they normally don't agree. That is how I joined several other guys and we formed the federation.
Yeah, the Federation of Conductors and Drivers.
Yes.
If you could just tell me about what the federation is all about.
The federation is a federation that does advocacy for our members, the drivers and the conductors. And of late, we are incorporating the long-distance drivers and the taxi drivers. Literally, what we intend to do is to train the drivers and advocate for the recognition by the government and by the employers, specifically the SACCOs and the individual owners. The drivers and conductors' job has always been taken as, it's not, what do you call it? It's not a formal employment. We want to the job to be recognized as formal. Formal in terms of, it's not a matter of, the salary is based on how I performed. So each day, the driver gets his 800, 700, 1,000 shillings. But if he did not bring enough money, he goes home empty-handed. And in most cases, that is the beginning of their misbehavior on the roads. So we are trying to really train them, build their capacities, and change the culture. Because there is that culture. How did they come into the industry? The matatu drivers and conductors in those years were taken as societal rejects. These were people who did not go to school. These were people who ran away from home. These were people who ran away from school. They disobeyed their parents and they were sent off. And then one came to the road and became a conductor. And gradually he transited into a driver. So the society also, at a certain stage, did not recognize them. And they normally fight back. If you don't recognize us, you are fighting back. You hate us, we hate you. And that is why they misbehave on the roads. We are trying as much as we can do to change this culture.
Yeah. You mentioned that you got to understand why they behave the way they do.
Yes.
So, according to you, how do they behave?
Well, though we are changing them and they're changing, they normally behave as the way the society outside that takes them. They are bad people, so they behave badly. But if they're recognized and respected, they will change, and they are changing.
Okay.
So this behavior you see on the road is their way of fighting back. Yeah.
Do conductors go through any sort of training before they get to be employed as, matatu conductors?
Unfortunately, no. And I think this is the only job in Kenya that one is not trained. Because teachers have training colleges, pilots have their own aviation school, doctors have their own MTCs and nurses. But conductor, you just leave your books there or leave your parents, go look for a matatu, you start hanging and become a conductor with no training at all. And we are saying they should be trained, especially on customer care. But maybe the government is coming to that, but before that, they are not trained at all.
Who is responsible for that? Is it entirely the government?
Not really, not entirely the government. There is the regulator of the public service, the National Transport and Safety Authority. Yes, they have a curriculum for drivers, but I have not seen a curriculum for conductors. They should be trained, partly by the government and partly by the employer, who is the SACCO. The SACCO should take up that the initiative for training the conductors. Yeah.
Okay, I get you. What are you doing as a federation in order to promote responsible road usage?
As I said before, the conductors need some training. And especially in Nairobi, we are seeing a trend of accident of either a passenger disembarking or intending to board a vehicle. Because everybody in Nairobi is in a hurry. The conductor is in a hurry, the passenger is in a hurry. So at one, maybe he slips and falls off. We want to stop that by training and retraining these conductors. And I think in every profession there is a refresher course. They should be, we are trying to organize courses for them so that they are trained. And the other thing we are trying to do, and hope we are going to succeed, is advocating for their employment on permanent basis. You see, if you pay a human being every day, 500, 1,000 shillings, he may not really account for this money. He may not budget for this money. But if he's paid a monthly salary, maybe he's going to behave well. Maybe he's going to save for his family. The other thing we are trying to do is to introduce a saving culture. They don't save. And that is why, Vivian, have you seen a retired matatu driver out there farming, or he owns a house or something? So where do they go? After one is old and he can no longer drive, where do they go?
Yeah.
My take is that they exit, they just die off, or you see them begging somewhere. So we are trying to introduce the saving culture. Let him save, he'll own a house. Thanks to the government, because of the houses that President Ruto has introduced. Maybe we are going to benefit out of those houses, and the driver or conductor will live well after he exits the industry. Yeah.
You mentioned something to do with initiatives and programs that you have put in place to ensure that you have this, both the conductors and drivers at least go through some sort of information or being educated on information on their sector. How do you go about that? Like, do you, as the federation, do you just call for them, or how do you go about that?
We are in a discussion with our partners to train the drivers. We are also performing road safety clinics across the country, maybe to sensitize the drivers on the need of road safety, on the need of good behavior on the road. And we have that one such clinic on the 26th of September.
On the 26th of September?
Yeah.
Where,
in Nairobi, yes.
Where all matatu drivers...
Not really all, but we are trying to get our representatives from every county, maybe 3, 4, 5 will come and get some training.
Okay. Yeah. All right. For the longest time, this sector is a sector that has been viewed as chaotic. Would you also call it chaotic, or what do you feel about that statement?
It It is not chaotic, but it has been branded chaotic. You see, when you always say Macharia is bad, he will become a bad boy. But if we can recognize them, they are parents like ourselves, they are sons and daughters of people, they can behave well. Only if they are recognized and respected. Yeah.
Are there policies maybe that have been put in place in order to govern the sector entirely?
Policies are there by the regulator, who is the National Transport and Safety Authority. But they are hardly enforced. There's a problem of enforcement. The policies are there, but who cares whether they are followed or not? And this is a result of too much corruption on our roads. Because you see, for example, in Nairobi, you are supposed to drop a passenger at a certain point. But along the route, when you enter Nairobi, there will be a policeman or a county enforcement officer who will enter your vehicle so that he'll tell you, drop them here and give me 100 shillings. So much as the government says you should not obstruct on the road, much as it is a traffic offense to obstruct, it is these policemen and county council and the county government officers who are aiders in committing these offenses.
Yeah. And you've touched on that, and I had a question on corruption still. I have been in a matatu going a long distance, and there was at least, I would count around 4 stops where I would see the driver give, at a stop, they give the traffic police something, they always have something folded on their hands, and then they give them. Just what exactly are you doing about that, and what can we do to change that? Because it's like, it's the norm. I was asking the driver, is this how you guys always operate? And he was like, yes, you have to do it for you to survive on these roads.
Yes, the driver or conductor has to do it to survive on the road. Let me say without fear of contradiction here that no traffic police officer wakes up in the morning from his house to go and work. They wake up, put on that uniform just to go and collect money, not to work. If they were working, we could not see them collecting money. Kenyan roads are littered with those policemen, and the only thing they do is collect money. They don't care whether the matatu is overloaded. They don't care whether the matatu is roadworthy. What they care about is the 100 shillings that they will get. Yes, we tell our drivers, don't do it. But if you don't do it, he'll waste your time. You'll be locked in for any offense that one could think of. And once this driver is put in custody, or he is delayed, and they call it kutupishwa mbao, he will not get his salary in the afternoon, because the owner of that PSV will want his 5,000, 10,000 shillings. So you give the owner or the SACCO what you agreed on, a target, and then the driver goes home empty-handed. So he'd rather give so that he works and gets something to go home with.
But what should be done? I mean, this can't be the norm. We can't just accept that this is how things are working, this is how things have always worked. What should be done?
I would not want to enter into a fight with the Inspector General, but I believe, especially in Nairobi, there are more traffic police officers than they should be. I mean, in one station, there should be a certain number of policemen, but nowadays there are so many doing nothing except collecting money.
That's a very strong statement.
Go to any road. There are so many policemen. What are they doing in Nairobi? Why don't they go to Northeastern? Why don't they go to fight Al-Shabaab? They are just in Nairobi, and they're in Nairobi for a purpose.
So what should be done?
Reduce the number of static policemen on our roads. Just reduce that number. There won't be corruption.
Yeah.
And then I think, I don't know whom to blame. At a certain time, we were supposed to go cashless.
Yes.
You see, if there is no money in a matatu, if Kenya was a cashless country in terms of fare, these policemen will start going back to the stations you won't see them on the roads. And this driver will be paid a monthly salary because there is no money in the matatu. Nobody will go to the matatu to collect the money. He'll properly enforce the rules and laws. And this conductor, this driver will also behave, knowing that at the end of the day, I have a salary. He will not misbehave. He will drive courteously. So I wish we could go that direction. Yeah. And why it has always failed is that the stakeholders have not properly been involved. Because they may sit in boardrooms and say, we want to be cashless by this date. Have they involved the driver? The conductor may be having some negative attitudes on cashless because he just wants money. Has he been involved? The matatu owner, the matatu owner would also be involved so that he'll know where will my money go. And if the money goes into a cashless system, how will I get my money to fuel this vehicle in the afternoon? How will I pay my mechanic? So all these people, including petrol station owners, mechanics, they should be involved in the issue of cashless. So that maybe my mechanic will agree to service my vehicle and I pay him after I get his money all at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So if it could be made a policy that we go cashless but involve the stakeholders, a long discussion, we discuss and agree, then we may reduce all these road accidents. Okay, so
you say that going cashless may be the way to go in order to do away completely with corruption in this particular sector. How would you say the changes have been over the years in the matatu sector this far?
Well, there before there used to be a lot of chaos, but when the SACCOs came in, when I think it was Honorable Mechoke who brought in the issue of SACCOs, there was a bit of order and discipline in the industry. But then you see the SACCOs may be toothless in terms of enforcing some of these rules. Because a SACCO may say no driver should carry excess passengers. But there's a policeman who will take 100 shillings for this driver to carry excess passengers. So the SACCOs are trying, and it's a good change, a positive change. We only wish the SACCOs could continue being enabled to enforce discipline, their own discipline, and also discipline on the road.
Okay. Yeah. Now that you've touched on SACCOs, I had a question on who exactly decides on which SACCO plies what route, because I think I don't know if it was last month or the month before last month where there was a strike whereby some SACCOs were complaining because, Metro had started plying a particular route and they were like, you're not supposed to be on this route. So who exactly decides on which SACCOs plies what routes?
Of course, it is the regulator, the National Transport and Safety Authority decides. You see, when the SACCOs were formed, and I think it was a mistake then, a SACCO that operates from Kariobangi was operating from Kariobangi only. A SACCO that operates from Kikuyu used to operate from Kikuyu only. But then the SACCOs also have grown. They need to go to other places. So that SACCO that operated from Kikuyu to town and now wants to go to Gong, what will happen to that person in Gong? So unless the regulator now says, this person who used to operate from Kikuyu is now going to Gong, so this person now who operates from Gong to town may also go to Kikuyu. And I think that could be fair. Yeah.
Okay. On issues or matters fair, we see sometimes that, maybe from maybe town to a particular place, it's 80 shillings. But the moment it rains, the fares just escalate or they are hiked. So is there a particular regulation on fares and, so that we just stop this hiking of prices every other time, hiking of fares every other time?
I think this is a prerogative of the SACCOs. The SACCOs can regulate their own fares. You say from Roiro to town is this much, whether it has rained or not. But then we say when it rains, there's jam, there's traffic snarl up. So we move slowly, we won't make the number of trips we used to make when it is dry. But I would say let the SACCOs deal with the fare issue, that our fares is this much. And it is there even in the traffic regulations. You should have a fare chart in every matatu. That during peak hours, this is what we charge. Off-peak, this is what we charge. Let the SACCOs adhere to that fare chart. And if a passenger is charged more, of course, there is that passenger feedback system in the matatu. There is a number displayed. Although some of the bad conductors remove that number. Call the SACCO and say, I have traveled from Thika to Nairobi. I've been charged more than I have seen on the fare chart. Yeah.
On that issue of passenger feedback, I actually had a question on that. If someone has a complaint, concerning the matatu that they were in, like, where do they go report? You've mentioned that there are normally numbers, but not in every matatu. So if the number is not there, where am I supposed to go report?
It is a rule by the National Transport and Safety Authority that every matatu should have that number. So it is upon that individual SACCO or company to make sure that that number is inside their matatu, a passenger feedback system. That is what they call it, passenger feedback system. You call the SACCO and complain or compliment. But if that number is not there, blame it on the SACCO. They are not enforcing what they are supposed to enforce, because that is purely theirs to enforce.
So every matatu should have
that
particular number.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I go by the statistics, road accidents are among the leading causes of death in the country. They are actually the third leading causes of death in the country. With last year, we lost around more than 4,000 people through road accidents. What exactly should be done to stop this, the menace of road accidents? Because some of them are just, they can be avoided, these accidents. What exactly should be done?
I don't know whether it is culture, but mention an accident in Kenya, people blame it on the matatu. But the percentage of accidents caused by PSVs is less than we see. Most accidents are not caused by PSVs. They are caused by trucks and personal cars. However, accidents that are caused by matatus, normally they are attributed to human error on the part of the driver. I will confess here that maybe there's too much pressure on the driver by the SACCO or the owner because of that target. I need this money in the afternoon. So maybe at times they misbehave or drive dangerously so that they reach that target. And maybe if only they could be employed permanently and stop the issue of the target could be there even if there is that monthly salary. Maybe the number of accidents will be reduced, but it is not the PSVs that caused most accidents in Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I've really touched on most negative things about the matatu culture, and I'd just love for you to tell me what you love most about the sector.
The sector, it is lucrative, it is too much involving. It's a hands-on industry. As an owner, you must have your hand on. It keeps you busy. It's a very busy industry. It is also an industry where you meet so many people. You meet the traffic policemen, you meet the NTSA, you meet so many people. So it's an accident where you are not supposed to grow old. You keep on being young because every day there's a development. And it's an industry where you can really save. And assisted. Money in the afternoon from my driver, I'll buy bread, milk, pay for whatever. But if the money is taken by the SACCO and saved, I will not go to the SACCO and take the money. That is a very positive, the SACCOs and savings. But I will instill the saving culture in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of time, what is for the PSV,
My
especially
vision
matatu?
is where this matatu driver, this conductor, will view that matatu as his office. Vehicle 1 million. This is my office. We want to be there. We want responsible drivers and conductors. I'm seeing a retired matatu driver who will tell the young ones, when I used to drive, I used to do like this. I used to save this way. That is why I own this house. I have such a vision for the industry.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. For anyone who's out there looking for a job, would you advocate for the matatu sector as...
Yes. Come join us. Come, let us meet these challenges together. That person out there who wishes to buy a matatu, go to the circle nearest you and ask them how to join and how they do it. And when you join a circle that will assist you safe. You, the driver who is outside there, and you want to join the matatu industry, come join the industry, but you must be a good driver. Matatu drivers are normally the best in terms of driving, but in terms of theory, they may not be very good. But
The
in
practical bit is where...
the practical bit, they're the best. Yeah, and this is because some of them transited from conductor and then they became a driver. So it's a good industry. Come join us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and thank you so much for enlightening this particular sector, that is the matatu. That was James Macharia, who is the for the and conductors, and what interview mainly for us to be able to change this sector as it should be, that is the drivers and employees, stakeholders involved. I hope that this is something that you will be looking into for us to make sure that we have, you know, proper way of or a good thing going on our roads when it comes to matatus. This is where I call it a wrap right here for myself, but don't you go too far. Rama Guko will be back with another interview.